Fans chant "Death to Dictator" in Iran's Naghsh-e Jahan Stadium. A popular uprising sweeping Iranian cities has now spread to squares and football stadiums amid continuing anger over political and economic policies of the Iranian regime. In a strong sign of the continuation of protests in Iran, thousands of people chanted slogans against the country's regime, such as "Death to Dictator," in Naghsh-e Jahan Stadium in Isfahan, which hosted the Sepahan and zobe Ahan game. As soon as the masses began to chant "Death to Dictator," riot police and internal security personnel began to deploy at the stadium in anticipation of increased protests. Iranian students call for release of protesters. Iranian university students have stood up for their imprisoned peers by denouncing the regime's crackdown on students during the current protests in an official statement. The University Trade Unions Council of Iran, UTUCI, explained that the regime is very fearful over the current demonstrations and using it as an excuse to pressure students, trade union activists, and others in the groups most likely to be protesting. The regime even preemptively arrested many students who hadn't taken part in the protests. The statement read, "Randomly detaining students showed how scared the authorities are of an independent entity that voices student demands and represents the poorer strata of society. They want the students freed unconditionally." Mayor of Tehran announced that the embezzlement figure during the former mayor Ghalibaf amounts to $60 million. During the 12-year tenure of Ghalibaf, was also a senior commander of the Revolutionary Guards as mayor of the capital Tehran. At least $60 million was missing. Majid Farahani, the chief of budget committee in the municipality of Tehran, announced, "Unfortunately, the corruption starts from senior ranking members and spreads to mid-level and junior managers." Terrified MPs call for independent probe of detainees' deaths. More than 40 members of the Iranian parliament have voiced support for human rights activists and organizations, calling for an independent investigation into the deaths of detained protesters, says Tehran MP Mahmoud Sadiqi. In a letter to the parliamentary speaker Ali Larijani, the MPs asked him to form an independent group to investigate the deaths of prisoners who had allegedly participated in recent widespread street rallies against the ruling regime. Iran, women's economic participation lags behind other countries. One of the officials of the Presidential Directorate on Women and Family Affairs declared that Iran ranks 140th among 144 countries in the 2017 Gender Gap Report. Previously, Rouhani had claimed that he had created 307,000 new jobs for women, while considering peddling in the streets as a job created by the government. This is while municipality agents round up peddlers every day on the streets and confiscate their belongings, and women engage in this job only as a last resort to earn the living of their families.